I think there's a difference between American imperialist impulses that the lobby is not responsible. I mean, that's the certain American way of thinking of what should be America's role in the world. And I don't think you can pin it on the lobby. With this, I agree with Noam Chomsky, who says that this is the main push for American. After all, the Israeli lobby is not responsible for what the Americans did in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, in Central America, South America. I mean, there is an American imperialist impulse, very
Yeah.
strong one. It has nothing to do with the lobby. However, when it comes to Israel itself and the area around Israel, that's when the lobby is effective in convincing the American imperialists that American imperialist interests are best served through Israel. The Israelis are really panicking for what they saw yesterday on the White House. When President Trump says Saudi Arabia is as important to us as Israel, which is exactly what he said. He said they're as important as Israel. Israel is not more important than Saudi Arabia. This is a moment, you never know with Trump. I mean, you don't know if there's any substance behind his statement. But let's say it is a substantial statement. Let's say it's not even a whimsical kind of utterance, that it's part of a possible strategic idea of how America's world would look like, America's involvement in the Middle East will look like in the next decade or two. That means that the imperialist impulse is not based necessarily on a strong alliance with Israel. It's maybe based on a strong alliance with Arab states that are pro-Americans. It creates much less problem if you think about it. The Saudis, of course, nobody cares about civil rights and human rights records, but it's easier to overlook the violation of human rights, civil rights in Saudi Arabia. It's not easy to overlook the violations of the Palestinian rights by Israel. And that could be
it's
another challenge.
One journalist that's really sorry to interrupt. There was one journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, that really draws some heat. Between MBS and Trump in the recent press
absolutely, absolutely. And America always say dictators are fine as long as they are our dictators. But the point is that the lobby, if the lobby would face an America that says, yes, we still want to be a dominant power in the world and in your neighborhood in the Middle East, but you know what? We don't need you. Then the lobby would find it very difficult to be effective, I think. So it's a cynical way of looking at the future by which you understand, and I always say it in the book, my last book, as an historian, the ability to relieve people from oppression and occupation is not always achieved by a pure, just moral struggle. Sometimes it is being achieved by more cynical developments, on which you have very little influence, but have an impact on your life, whether you are enthusiastic about these changes or not. It doesn't matter. In the end of the day, it can create a different reality, similar to the impact of the end of the Cold War on the chances of toppling the apartheid regime in South Africa. It was a very important development, without which the apartheid would have lingered on for a while, if the Cold War would have not ended and the Soviet Union would have not collapsed.
So how do you see then the current situation in the US? I mean, obviously with Trump, we don't really know what's going to happen next, but it's without a shadow of a doubt, I think the civil society, in fact, his base, is hugely split, and the single issue that's splitting his base is Israel. Not least because of Gaza, but also the amount of money that US sends to Israel. Many openly say that the US is run by Israel because of these kind of blind loyalty to Netanyahu and his government, but also things like the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There's competing narratives, all of which somehow center around US support for Israel or Mossad's influence in the US. And of course, probably the biggest one is Epstein, which, of course, there are issues and questions of who is guilty on both sides of the aisle in the US. But there's an overarching narrative there, especially now that we're hearing, as of today, that most likely we won't see the files released despite it passing House and Senate, and Trump will most likely sign it because of national security implications. And many are drawing, some better than others, conclusions that the national security risk really is the expose of a foreign intelligence service, i.e. Mossad, having played a key part in the propping up of Epstein. How do you view that from your perspective?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the source of power for AIPAC is the Capitol Hill, not the White House. There were presidents that AIPAC didn't like. Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, George Bush Sr., to mention the three most kind of, at least, let's say, more courageous presidents. Yeah, courageous presidents, at least facing some of AIPAC's pressure. Even Reagan had a clash with AIPAC. So the source of power is not the White House. The source of power is Capitol Hill. Until we don't hear different voices from there, presidents come and go. The lobby in Capitol Hill stays. You have to pay attention to Capitol Hill. That's where the source of power for AIPAC and the other sections of the lobby exists. So all these developments that you rightly described, we need to see if they are reflected in a change of attitude in Capitol Hill, not in the White House. Now, I do believe that you're right, that a younger generation of Republicans would be much more isolationist in terms in the context of Israel. Namely, there would be a limit to how much money they think the United States should invest in sustaining Israeli policies and adventures. I think we should pay attention to the younger Democratic generation. They already have shown in the municipal elections last week their ability to even win in places which traditionally were kind of blue-collar people, blue-collar workers were voting even for Trump. So I think, yes, there is a trend in the society that would distances the United States from Israel. But I haven't seen yet its impact on Capitol Hill, on the decision taken by either the House of Representatives or the Senate. But I do believe it will happen. I do believe that these are very slow processes. We have to remember that the lobby is still connected to the arms lobby, to the multinational corporation that still see Israel as a good investment for high-tech, pharmaceutical technologies, and of course security and military industries. We should not underestimate the importance of these powerful lobbies to join forces with the lobby of Israel. But again, the question is, do these lobbies need Israel if indeed the Arab world is going to provide a much better and easier markets or collaboration, these, I think the bottom line of what we are talking about is not to take a determinist view on American policy. Also, historically, I can show that it was not always, as people think, totally anti-Palestinian and pro-Israeli. So let's not take a determinist view on it. Secondly, there are all kinds of possible scenarios. One through a more progressive democratic success, one through maybe less attractive to me, but a more isolationist Republican success. Either way, it's part of the same, metrics of processes that lead us to think that the position of Israel becomes much more vulnerable and precarious as we look into a more distant future.